All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is John Dalton. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of McFarland Stanford. I'm going to kick this off for us. Want to give you guys a little background on how to use the system. I want you guys to pop in the chat, tell us who you are, give us your name. Let's get that active. We also have a button down here at the bottom for Q&A. I want you guys to ask some questions. I'll be answering some of those questions as we go on, and I want to save some of those for the end here too. And we'll have Tommy and Mark answer those questions for you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Tommy and we'll kick this thing off. Take it away.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, John, for getting this all set up. This is going to be a great little session here. I don't see anyone typing. Is that, are they just ghosting us, or they're actually saying something here? Maybe not. Okay. There we go. There's one person. That's John. Here we go. All right. Little live interactive session. That's what we like to see. So let's just jump right in. I'm Tommy Cole. If you don't know who I am, I'm the partner and vice president of McFarland Stanford. I've got a brief history, 20 plus years experience in the landscape world. Do lots of construction all over the U.S. and lots of project management. Love operations. It's my favorite thing to do. And here I am today with you guys. Also, I've got Mark Bradley, the CEO of LMN and Greenius. He also travels the world. He had a landscape company just like all of us at some point back in the day, and grew it pretty large, and had a lot of lessons learned and a lot of screw ups. And he's probably going to share a lot of those things with us. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. Let's see here. So top 4 fall revenue drivers, basically getting ahead of the game. Here we are in August, the dog days of summer. It's hot, it's tough. People are traveling. School is just starting to kick off, and you're probably wondering, why are we talking about fall? Well, fall is right around the corner, and you need to get ahead of the game. And so this is what we're going to talk about. So the first we broke these up into 4 categories we think are revenue drivers to get going. So I'd like to start off with the first slide, if we could, John. Yeah, there we go. So what I like to see here is the four that we've identified. That's events and enhancements. Number 2 is problems and preparation. 3 is education, or the best time to plant, as an example. And 4 is winter work. So there's a whole bunch of data in all 4 of those, but we try to simplify it for more of an enhancement opportunity, small projects and even large projects to jump in and go from there. But let's jump into the very first one, which is events and enhancements. So John, there we go. All right. So you're probably like, well, what does this mean, events and enhancements? Man, back in the day when I did landscaping for a number of years, right now in August, we are preparing for the fall. And what that means is you got to be one season ahead of the client all the time. And what does that mean? You got to be ahead. Now that it's summer, you got to be in fall mode / winter mode right now. So you got to be thinking about, what's coming in the fall. Is that some events that are happening, like holiday decor? We got fall displays. We got planting installs. We've got holiday parties. We have school starting up parties. Think about what opportunities you have in the landscape, whether an enhancement, maintenance, or installation work. Always be one season ahead of the client. It's never too early to act on those things on those properties, whether it be an HOA, community party, dressing up the landscape for certain areas of the properties. Always look for holiday party schedule. Ask your client, what do you got going this fall? What parties and events? Who are you hosting? Is it a pool party? Is it what type of gathering? What type of needs do you need for your outdoor landscape? Whether that's anything from power washing to seasonal flowers to holiday decor, seasonal lighting, everything. Basically, you want to take the guesswork. If your client is reaching out to you in August 1st and going, hey, when can I get seasonal flowers? Hey, What's the latest? Man, you are too late to the party. At the end of the day, you're the landscape professional, right? You should be ahead of them and planning these things well in advance to get your items on the calendar. What we did best that worked a ton of value was we always did a 12-month enhancement calendar. And that was every single month for continuous 12 months a year. We had certain either 5 to 10 opportunities to reach out to clients for enhancement work. We built that calendar based on all the account managers and project managers we have and say, in January and February, we can do this. In October, November, we can do this. So it's a reminder of the things that are coming. So if you're in August, we're looking at October, November, December for that item. You can look at that calendar and go, ooh, wow, I haven't reached out to that client about this. I haven't reached out about that. It gives you sort of like a little bit of a cheat sheet, which is wonderful. I like to tell our people is provide value. That's why we're in the landscape business. It's not just about mowing grass and it's not about cutting shrubs and trimming. It's providing value to your clientele, meaning we are 12 months ahead of you. We're 3 months ahead of you. This is what you should be preparing for your garden. Flowers, mulch, irrigation checks, drainage problems and situations. You should be ahead of them because you're the professional. It's no different than being a professional football player, soccer player, a lawyer. You're the professional. Provide the value more than just the dollar amount that's on a piece of paper. Mark, anything to add to the events and enhancements based on your experience of the last many years?
Yeah, no, I think the calendar view is a really good idea. I think creating a 12-month calendar for sales in general is really strong. You know, what should we be selling at what time of year? And really, I think it needs to be built out in accordance with your ICP, because I think, you know, most landscapers have more than one ICP or ideal client profile, customer profile. What tends to happen, I think, is we hyperfixate on one type of client or another, and we go out and sell very specific things at certain times of year, but we kind of forget about what we could be selling to other customer profiles. And so getting a 12-month calendar with real clarity around what we're going to focus on selling each customer profile month to month. And then I think layering in some marketing and sales initiatives to support each. And I think you know, looking at that in terms of blocks makes it a little bit easier. Going monthly can work for sure, but the reality is time's moving quickly. And I think if we look at 8 to 12 week sales cycles, it might be a little bit easier to craft a campaign or a program around it. And that program should include your newsletters, your social media themes, your outbound selling, maybe even just proactive proposals, or maybe you're going to do a quarterly health check with your customers. But I think if we, you know, as landscapers choose 3 to 5 blocks of time throughout the season, whether it's 2-month blocks, 3 months blocks, and really just make sure that we've got a program put together, I think we can be a lot more proactive. And then I think part 2 is like training the staff to actually understand how to sell those add-ons, because I think oftentimes we tell people to go and sell things, but we don't necessarily help by creating really good sales resources, tools that they can use to sell, and then also training our staff to ask really compelling power questions that kind of force the customer to think of things that they may not normally think of. And so, for example, if we're going to go sell seasonal decorating for the holiday season, you know, what are the 4 or 5 questions that we need to ask a customer to sort of raise awareness and drive some demand? And then what are the supporting power statements that kind of match up with those questions so that we can establish value and really help them understand that there is a lot of value in doing that type of work, like specifically in that time frame. And I think most companies don't develop the campaigns, and they don't support it by having sales resources and sales training. And so they never really master enhancement sales as a result. There just isn't
Right.
a program around it.
Yeah, 100% agree. I love that, the blocking. It's almost like you take it in quarterlies throughout the year. Each quarter there's we're now in, this quarter we're in now. What's happening the next quarter? It's also seasonality. There's 4 seasons in a year. So you can take out, like, we're in the summer now. What are you going to do for fall? Then what are you going to do for winter? You're always that season ahead. And what's the campaign? I think a lot of landscapers tend to think like it's almost too last minute. Oh my gosh, sales are down. What do we got to do? Right? Oh, fine. Well, let's get a campaign going. It's almost too late. Even though you could be busy at this time of year, but what if it starts to slow down? And it's sort of being ahead of the game, which could be much more successful.
Yeah, I think when you're always looking a quarter ahead, it kind of forces the right behavior.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we can't be selling for August in August. We all know that.
Yeah.
We do need to
Yeah.
get ahead. And I think when we craft marketing and sales campaigns that are more tied to operations, I think we have much more success. And I think often what we tend to do as landscapers is we're really operational focused because we have these peaks and busy seasons to deal with. And I think what ends up happening is we forget to sell when we're operationally busy, and then we end up with a little bit of a lumpiness in our sales as a result. But that can definitely be avoided with the quarter.
Yeah, I agree. There's a question here. It says, are there any sample monthly enhancement calendars available? That's a great question. What I'm used to is we just developed one on our own based on the geographic region that we lived in. So take, for example, we're in Texas, and not a lot happens in January, February, but in January, February, there was opportunities like so many things to be done, whether it be tree pruning and irrigation adjustments and those types of things. So it's dependent on geographically where you're located and what are the services that you offer. So, we typically would mulch in July and August during the hottest time of the year because most people are traveling, they're gone, it's hot, less likely to install plants during the heat. So we did all of our mulch installs in those odd months. Plus the homeowners were not in town, so they didn't have that bad smell for a few days. So I think it's more tailored to you and your business and your area is my recommendation. Great question.
Yeah, really good question.
Yeah, let's move on to the next. So problems and prep. I love this slide. You are in the business of solving issues more than just being a landscaper. You're there to solve the problems at the end of the day. So I got a few key notes here. Stay in touch. Consistent communication is key. How annoying is it if you don't talk to your client for 6 months? Mark, you can probably attest to this. And all of a sudden you give them a drainage irrigation proposal for an enhancement. Right. The client's going, well, wait a second, Tommy, I haven't seen, like, what is this? What is this? The idea is to stay in touch with your client consistently throughout the year. I'm a fan of a touch point every single month on a maintenance property. If you're in construction, there should be a touch point every single week, no matter what. But that consistent communication is going to be better off when you say, hey, I propose this idea to solve the problem. The other thing is creating awareness of potential property issues. This is your job, like this previous slide. It is your job to know what is going on that property. Is it low areas that hold water? Is it certain areas that are getting too much sun or too much shade where the plants aren't growing? Is it because there's always a leak in the irrigation system? Like, it's your job to find those along the way and then come up with a solution. Picture's worth 1,000 words. At the end of the day, if you're taking pictures on your property and your job sites, those better help explain to the client of the things that are leading up to those issues, so that therefore you can propose an idea to solve it. I train your frontline and support team. This is one that you already mentioned, Mark. Like, do they actually know what to look for when they're on a property? Like, if you got maintenance teams or you got construction teams, can they identify problems in the landscape that are starting to arise? That's a great training thing for your company, because then they can bring, say, hey guys, I was just noticing this east side along the house where the plants are starting to die because of this and this is going on, or we got a fungus in the lawn that we need to take care of. Take pictures and understand that you're able to, create these enhancement opportunities and along with your frontline and support team while they're on site. Proactive selling, don't wait for the phone to ring. I think Mark mentioned that earlier. Mark, anything to add on problems and prep?
Yeah, I mean, I think to systemize this, I think ultimately every company struggles with being proactive, like just being totally transparent. I think we all beat ourselves up about being proactive enough with our customers. And the reality is not every customer wants to hear from you. Not every customer wants to meet and do a quarterly walkthrough on their property, but many will. And I think when we create a program around this, and we actually create a schedule and an approach to doing this, we can get a little bit more impactful with the way we do things. So if you've got account managers and you're doing residential ICP focused work, or maybe it's commercial HOA ICP focus, there's going to be a different set of needs for enhancements based on the ICP. And then I think there's going to be a different way to stay in touch. With a property manager, it's reasonable to ask for in-person property walkthroughs every 2 to 3 months to kind of review how things are going, make sure they're happy with the quality, and then also look at the property for any enhancement opportunities. And so I think that is a program that you put in place with a client when you sign them on, and you pre-schedule those meetings for the year, and then they happen. And I think the program in the system is the meetings. And so the delivery mechanism that you choose for each ICP, I think, has to involve meetings and a recurring cadence. And then you can use other tools like email marketing. Actually, John just threw newsletters. You can use SMS notifications, sending out mass communications to recommend mulch at a certain time of year. And so we can get like really programmatic about it. But I think most companies just don't have a set of standards or a way that they plan to do things. The meeting cadence, I think, is the key, though.
Yep. Systematize, you kind of hit the nail on the head at the end of the day. You don't recreate the wheel every single week or month. But, there's a great question with some key ways to stay in constant communication. This is what I believe in. A newsletter probably isn't good enough. It's very generic. But I agree with you, Mark. It's communication in two forms, I believe in, and that's this sort of digital, whether it be an email as an update on their property, whether it's once a month, once a quarter type deal. You need to define that as an organization. But most importantly, you got to meet with these people face to face. We are in a relationship business more than landscape. We are a relation. We are creatures of light, want to engage with people on site. We're very touchy-feely with our landscape. So I would say walk a property every single quarter at a minimum and understand what your client's needs are, point out the problem areas, include enhancement opportunities, let them know what's going on that quarter versus, hey, this is when we're trimming all the shrubs. This is when we're putting down the pre-emergent in the wintertime. That constant dialogue, by the way, builds trust. So good stuff. Good questions. You guys keep those coming. Those are good. Just keeping Mark and I in check. All right. Number 3. So moving on. I love this. Educate your clients. This is kind of a spinoff of what we've just been talking about. We are in the business to basically communicate all the education that we know. Never assume anything in our world. There's so many myths and green thumbs. Like I've heard it all. Well, roses are terrible. Like they're awful. Well, why are they terrible? Well, my grandma had them and they kind of stab me in the leg every time I walk by. Well, they're actually not that bad, right? But there's so many myths. At the end of the day, you are the professional in this industry. It is your job to educate clients. And one of the best things I love to do is like when I'm selling, if I'm an account manager, an enhancement manager, or a project manager, the best time in Texas is to install plants in the fall. Period. End of story. No arguing. Not the best time is spring. Although it's a good time, it's not the best time. Why? Because the plants get really acclimated to their environment when you put them in the ground in the fall, and they got all winter, spring, and before the summer hits, they're acclimated. Okay. So it's our job to educate the clients. Like, what a better opportunity when it's 100 degrees in Texas to plant your, large trees, your ball and burlap trees and shrubs in the fall. I mean, that's what we're talking about, is sort of getting ahead of the game and educating a client along the way. There's tons of opportunity, get ahead of your clients in the winter, whether it be snow operations, right? We're getting ready for snow contracts, snow season. Get those contracts out, meet with those clients face to face, tell them your game plan of what's going to go on, how you're going to communicate, when you're going to communicate. Right now is the time to educate them along the way. Mark, anything else to add there?
Yeah, I think, oftentimes we say, like, go and educate your customers. And I think sometimes salespeople want to do this, but they don't necessarily know exactly how to approach it. And saying just educate is a little generic. And so I think for the leaders that are here on the call, ask yourself if you've really created a system to help your sales staff or your account managers actually get good at doing this systematically. And so the best way that I've found to do this is, once you create those programs that I talked about earlier, if we've got a fall program, and let's say the fall program for the ideal customer profile for residential maintenance includes enhancement planting, what 5 questions are you going to give your salespeople to ask in person or on the phone or over email? What 5 questions are you going to give your sales team that allow them to ask questions that give them the right to drop power statements, which are the educational delivery model?
Correct.
We have to ask a question in order to get the right to tell someone information. Otherwise, we're talking at them. And I think we don't train our salespeople to ask those really good, compelling questions that get an answer from a customer almost undeniably giving us the right to educate them. And so, like, we have to learn what those questions are in order to be really capable of selling using education. And I think that requires a little bit of thought, a little bit of practice, lots of role play training for sales staff. And then when they get out there talking to a homeowner, they can just drop 3 or 4 questions and walk away with a customer that wants planting. But if they don't have the confidence to ask the questions and drop the right statements, they just never really get around to it. And I think oftentimes it's a result of a lack of training.
Yeah, I think we just assume that when it comes to the fall, we just can go find enhancements. And at the end of the day, like, how do you go find work? How do you go sell it? At the end of the day, I don't think we do enough training on our team to go find the work. And so role playing is a really good example. What we used to do back in the day is we would actually go to a maintenance property, for your example, for residential maintenance. And we would walk around, me being an account manager, walking around with my colleague and acting like they're the client. And we would walk around and take the opportunity to talk about their garden, how it's transforming, some trouble areas, some areas that are doing well. What if we enhance this topic? What do you think this would look like? Do you think you're going to have guests this fall? And that exposure, sort of role playing in their garden, was huge for us. I mean, that's what you're saying now is that's how you educate moving forward, whether it be the client or in even your team. That's great. Let's see.
One comment that came in was somebody mentioned having a smaller sales team and how to make it scalable, how to do this at scale. And I'll share this, and many people might not like the answer here. I think in our haste as humans to make everything scalable and automated, we have to always kind of like take a step back and remember, like the fact is that people are always going to do business with people they know, like, and trust. And, you know, scalable models like SMS messaging and email and, you know, automated proposal generation, these are all powerful tools that, of course, we want to use as part of our strategy, but
Mhm.
it's really hard to replace getting in front of a customer and having a conversation where you're asking 3 to 5 power questions that allow you to drop 3 to 5 key statements as to serve the initiative that you're focused on. Because I think what happens is, like, when you're on their property and you're talking about their specific property, you're surfacing pain points that they may be ignoring, because the reality is they don't see the problems the way we see them. And I think when we walk the property, point a few things out, do a little education as we're sort of describing solutions, they make the decision of whether or not to go ahead. And quite often, I think we sell the way that we buy as humans. And the reality is, when we try to do it scalable and we say, like, let's just send an email to everybody and tell them that we're doing aeration, the fact is more than half don't open the email. The other half don't know why they need an aeration. Whereas if you're standing there making that recommendation, describing what the impact is going to do, probably 9 out of 10 are going to go ahead with that aeration.
Yeah.
Because, like, they don't perceive that problem as being worth trading money for until they see the problem clearly. And I think we forget this as landscapers. Our job is to help people understand their landscaping. And if we're not there to have the conversation, then they don't really see the problem. So we can't expect them to part with money to solve it. And I think that the in-person is highly, highly undervalued, particularly if you've got an ICP that is high touch, like luxury homeowners or property managers of nice HOAs or office parks.
Yeah, good point. You know, just to add to that a little bit, this is an action item, and you know, once you do have that, you know, walk through with the client, and they start, get building the trust of doing some enhancements around the property. Don't forget to action those action items that you got to follow through on. Too oftentimes we take all these notes, and the client wants this or that, and then a week goes by and you haven't done anything, right? Because you've got this laundry list of things. Time is of the essence at the end of the day. If you've got a client that's kind of ready to go, hey, just send me some pricing, send me a rough sketch of what your idea is that we talked about. You got to go. You got to get on that. And every day that goes by is another day that you kind of look like a fool because you didn't follow up on what you were supposed to do in the end of the day, right? And then you start to, go back to the office, you get sidetracked, you're in meetings, you're driving to other job sites, run around. You got to get there quick. One of the ideas that we've always done is small enhancements. You should be able to kind of whip that out really quick in LMN. You've got the client, you've got their CRM, you've got all the pricing ready to go with flats and color and plants. Boom, 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 add the soil, add the crew, the truck, send. You could almost send those enhancements when you're done meeting the client, jump in your truck, spend the next 30 minutes creating that little enhancement opportunity, hit send, put your truck in drive and go to the next one. That's called systematize at the end of the day. And you're not having to go back to the shop, kind of recreate and think about your ideas a few days later. So don't forget to act on those things that she or he signed up for.
That's really big. And I think, when you create systems, if you are scaling up a sales team, whether it's you as an owner operator or you've got 3 or 6 or 30 salespeople, there's a few really important metrics that need to be clear. And I think if you're a sales leader and you've got people reporting to you, you need a few insights. First off, how many meetings are you actually having? Yeah. And how much proposal pipeline have you got out there? And what is the close rate on that pipeline? And I think at minimum you need that. There's many more metrics that that I'd want to look at. But if you know how many meetings they're doing in person with existing customers, if you really truly know how much proposal pipeline is being developed and what the close rate is, then you know their activity level, and you know that they're following through with those pricing, and you know how effective they are at driving demand with their conversations, with those power questions and power statements that I talked about, because of the close rate.
Yeah.
And when you look at close rate as a percentage of the number of proposals. So what percentage of my proposals close, but also what percentage of my revenue closes? Like, am I just an expert at selling small ticket items, or am I actually selling some bigger ticket items? Because I think on enhancements, we could be selling a $100 aeration, or we could be selling a $35,000 planting. And so we want to be very clear on, like, are we generating new business on a per proposal basis? And then are we selling the big ticket items? I think that's really important when you're building out a system.
Yeah, 100%. And Mark, that's all in LMN. You can track all that. You can pull out all the dashboards, understand what's going on, what's working, what's not working. So highly recommend. All right, moving to the last but not least, this thing called winter work, keeping crews busy and the money coming in. Whoo, I've heard it for years and years and years being a coach. At the end of the day, it frustrates me when I run into clients and go, well, Tommy, the winter is. We just we make all this money in the growing season, and we're in the black financially. We've got a lot of cash. But you know what? In the wintertime, we just got to pay for our team, and we're just kind of hanging out. And then I go back into the red financially. And then I'm praying that, I'm praying that it snows, or I'm praying that, it's an early spring so I can get after it. Oh man, that's tough for all your profit to be built during the growing season, and to get rid of all your profit in the winter. It hurts me. For all that hard work to go away. At the end of the day, you need to think about your business as a year-round business and not seasonal. It's 12 months a year working, billable work all the time. One example I got in this sort of snow removal business. You can tell in the last couple of years, snow comes and sometimes snow doesn't come. I don't want you to be waiting in November, hoping that it snows. And actually it doesn't. I remember a year and a half ago, a good friend of ours up in the Philadelphia area, big snow contractor, does millions of dollars of snow each year. Year and a half ago, no snow came. Not even, like, it was more just kind of a rain, no snow at all, nothing. He was prepared for all his machines, his crews, his guys. I mean, he was bleeding money, really, really bad. What that forced him to do is create an enhancement division with all of his commercial clients, big commercial client. And he developed ways to come up with enhancements in these opportunities. He had no enhancements at all. It was mowing, pruning, huge, massive warehouses throughout the state. So he said, I got to jump on this opportunity and sell mulch and tree trimming and enhancement things. And he was able to develop that during a no snowfall one winter. Fast forward, he's got an enhancement division manager. He's got 4 enhancement crews. They work year round, full time, because of 1 year they didn't have any snow. So you got to keep these people busy. You got to be encourage them of thinking outside the box. We put some examples up in here. So dormant pruning, tree trimming, mulch, seasonal flowers, bulbs, all those things that we were doing, back in Texas, holiday lighting and decor, pumpkin displays. Those are high margin work at the end of the day that requires, little to minimal training. If you're providing a high touch client, there's no reason you should be doing some sort of, lighting, sort of decor or pumpkin type displays. Hardscape insulation repairs. I got stories at the end of the day. We used to do a lot of hardscape work in the winter. We would put tarps and awnings with portable heaters, and our hardscape crews would go after it in the wintertime. doing small repairs to spas and pools, decking, repointing walls with all the brick and the mortar, nonstop. A lot of power washing, cleaning, gutter work, winterization of pool and irrigation, freeze protection, preparation for the winter time. That's just a few things that we were coming up with as far as being creative to prevent to enhance your properties during the winter months. By the way, I got to give a lot of credit. All these pictures you're seeing here are Hidden Creek Landscaping, which is a user of LMN and one of our peer group members in McFarland Stanford in the Grow Group. Beautiful photos that they've provided us to share. So give Jason Cromley and the Hidden Creek team some love over there. Some great photos. Mark, anything to add based on your experience on these?
Yeah, I mean, again, kind of getting back to making it a system. I think when you're trying to really improve your sales process and really try to bake in more of a seasonal approach to your sales process, where you're really, either selling quarterly or in some maybe 2-month blocks. What I think happens is you look forward at the next season, you look at the opportunities that exist. Ideally, you create some kind of a checklist of the ideal enhancements for each ICP. So again, choose a known list of enhancements that are ideal for each ICP. Go out and actually do inspections, get those proposals in front of people, as wherever possible, book meetings. I think the meetings are everything. But I think what most companies are missing is this urgency around getting ahead of it. And so we kind of just keep missing the opportunity season after season after season. In August, you're busy with summer vacations and closing out projects, and you're not really thinking about maybe selling seasonal color and seasonal displays and holiday lighting and whatnot. And so you don't end up getting the marketing out, you don't end up booking the meetings, you don't have a program. So I think it's like creating the program, but then also creating targets for anybody that's responsible for the program. I think one thing that, in my own career that I've failed at many times in wanting to grow parts of the business is I say, let's grow this component, but I don't really cascade targets to everybody in the company to make sure that it happens. And so I think what you need to do here is, if you're going to create a fall program, for example, what are the fall targets and who owns them? And so if there's 3 salespeople and we want $200,000 worth of enhancements, let's divide it up. It's 60,000 from each person. And then let's come up with a clear list of what we're selling, and then we'll go out there and make it happen. And I think we have to track that pipeline, and we have to know that we've actually gone out, we've done the meetings, we've put the proposals out, and we're seeing results or we're not. But in my experience, also having an overarching target for all maintenance clients, we want 50% of the revenue to come from enhancements, for example.
Yeah.
And if enhancements are, pricing out at 15 to 20% profit, and our recurring maintenance contracts are only bringing 5 to 8%, well, then we know that we might have a blended average of 12 or 13% net profit. And I think that, programmatically being tied back to the budget is really important. How much revenue do we expect to get from recurring maintenance? And how much do we expect to get from enhancement sales from that book of business? And I think when you approach enhancement sales that way, I think what happens is you become a lot more aggressive about doing the right things at the right time, because everybody in the company understands the importance, and they've got targets and ideally incentives that are tied to actually delivering that. And it's pretty important here with enhancements, because it is the difference between having a 7 or 8% net maintenance business versus 15%. And I see this all the time with companies who've got an enhancement program that's well defined and well utilized.
Yeah, 100% agree with you, Mark. You know, it's one of those things that at the end of the day, you can sit there and say you're going to do enhancements or actually build a plan to go after enhancements. One of the old school ways that you can say is, if I've got 75 maintenance clients, I'm going to break them all up and we're going to go through every single client and identify enhancements on every single property. We're going to go to those properties, visit with them, understand what their property could use, and start proactively going after those enhancements. Whether it's this fall, maybe it's a spring enhancement, maybe it's the next summer on a phase 2 project. You know, this is another thing. Maybe it's something that you've already done last year and you're proposing a phase 2. They said they wanted phase 2, but maybe they're waiting for you to develop the phase 2 opportunity, right? Why should you wait for them to call you for phase 2? So it's an idea of like game planning on your properties to be proactive and jump into those opportunities. That's what the client's paying for you. That not just your generic mowing, the generic installation. That's all fine, but like, what are you doing outside the contract to provide value? Like on one of our other slides, I'm providing value by I'm walking your property, I'm assessing some problem areas, I'm letting you know what's going on, and I'm also throwing some enhancement opportunities to better beautify your place. And so that's how you really get into the momentum. It's a great momentum shift when you start to get the entire team on board to go after enhancements. Gets a little competitive, and which is healthy for your business. So anything to add, Mark?
I mean, that like also particularly in the fall, more than any other time of year, getting out there and doing actual meetings with your clients on your maintenance accounts. There's no better time to do this because a few things can happen. You can obviously book a lot of enhancement business, could be even new project business. But most importantly, you're going to leave a lasting impression at the right time of year when you want to focus on retention. I mean, as the year starts to wind down, you want that customer to be coming into the end of the season feeling as though you've really solved all their problems. You've taken a proactive approach to making recommendations. You haven't really left anything to chance when it comes to renewing. And ultimately, our biggest value creation driver in terms of your business valuation is always going to be retention. You have to figure out a way to keep the existing customers long term. And I think this fall program is a key component of that. If you're not meeting with your customer in the last couple of months of service, then there's a good chance that you've missed some of their needs along the way, and you just may not get another chance. So I think there's a lot of value in retention here too.
Very, very good point. Retention is the name of the game. We're also worried about getting new clients, but you got to close the back door at the end of the day and not let the clients leave. And so the idea is that I can't live without ABC Landscaping Company. That's the way you want them to roll into the off season and going into the new season come, the spring. Is they did such an amazing job. There's no way I can live without these guys. So good one. Let's get the next slide. Oh yeah. So key takeaways. So what are we going to do now? So as Mark mentioned, look at the data, reach out to clients ahead of time for repeat business. The data. It's all, if you guys are using LMN, all the data is in there. What I use this example all the time. I used to have a client that wanted the same thing every single year. And she said, Tommy, I want the 250 flats of yellow pansies. Or let me back up. I want yellow pansies every single year. Just make it happen. Well, every year we're like, how many flats did we use? Like, what did we do? Where did they go? In fact, year after year, we have to recreate the wheel at the end of the day, which was so frustrating. So what we were able to do is put that data into our CRM for that client. We use 250 flats of yellow. There was 10 flats here, 30 flats here, 70 flats here. And we would take pictures of all that data. So when it came time next year for the 250 so yellow pansies, that data was ready to go. Come September, I'm ready to send a proposal to Miss Smith in anticipation for it to be going out so we can install it in December for the entire winter. That's what Mark was talking about in the systematized type deal, is looking at that data that your client is using and spending and turn it into a system and repeat it every year. Make it personal. Reach out and stop by personally on all clients. I mean, not just top clients, but at the end of the day, it's a relationship business. We just happen to do a landscape at the same time. You got to get your foot out there, visit with them, understand what's going on, have a personal connection. Whether if you got kids and they got kids the same age, maybe they're working in the same, business as you, maybe they got a cool sports car that you like sports cars. Find that personal connection with your clients at the end of the day so that they really sort of enjoy your conversation. That makes it easier to sell pretty much anything. The third thing is be proactive. You got to go after it. It's never going to walk in the door. I mean, quite frankly, I'll back up. COVID's done. All that's over with at the end of the day. Sales are just not going to fall into your lap anymore. It's just not. You got to get after it. Do property walks, identify problems you can solve, and go after those enhancements in that work. Last but not least, educate and train. Educate your clients, your prospects and key staff on what works best and what to look for. No different than the role playing on properties to understand, like, what does an enhancement mean? How do you look for it? What are opportunities? Like Mark was mentioning. Anything to add there? Takeaways, Mark?
Yeah, just always when you're kind of focused on education and trying to surface needs, I just want to reiterate how much value there is in working on your sales process as a group. Define the needs for each ICP and make sure that anybody selling really truly understands those needs. And they do change.
Hey, Mark, let me interrupt. What for our audience, ICP, so they understand?
Ideal customer profile.
There you go. Ideal client. We call it ideal client, ideal customer profile. That's what he means. I just want to make sure everyone understood that.
Yeah. So for each ideal customer profile, make sure that you understand what their needs are likely to be for the coming season. So I think it's really valuable to do this on a seasonal basis for sure. And then make sure that you have questions and statements that help them identify what their needs actually are and what you offer. And I think this is where the role play training really comes into play. So if we're going to go and meet with a customer in September, we should know what their needs are before we go, what their typical needs are for that type of customer before we go to the meeting. And we should have 3 to 5 questions that we're going to utilize in that meeting, almost like on autopilot. And then when they give us their answers, we're going to have 3 to 5 matching statements that allow them to learn from us and understand how we solve those problems so that they can hire us to solve that issue for them. And what we have to remember is every ideal customer profile has different needs and different pain points, right? A busy residential homeowner who is in their late 40s, early 50s with 2 people working full-time, their biggest pain point is they have no time. Now, a wealthy retired person who likes gardening has a completely different set of pain points. And so when we show up to speak to the busy professionals, we have different questions than when we show up to speak with
good point.
the older retired couple. We have the same objective. We just want to get more share of wallet. We want to do more revenue, more business with them. We want to solve their problems and secure the business for the future. But we do need to have better questions. And I think when we just leave this up to our employees to develop the questions and surface the need and then speak to those needs and educate customers, I think we're leaving a lot of room for error. I think that is where most landscapers really, really fail to train frontline salespeople with like just the basics.
Yeah.
If they're good at asking questions and explaining value with power statements, they'll sell a lot of business, probably a lot more than they are today. And so that's simple place to start. I just training.
Love it. That's great advice. John, we got some questions. Oh yeah. So by the way, as we wrap up, so just a quick little note here. We do ACE peer groups. It's peer groups are very valuable in any type of business that you're in, but we have what we call ACE accountability creates excellence. That's what ACE stands for in peer groups. We have 20 or so groups from all over the country. I lead 4 of them of the 20, but we're having our next event in New Orleans. Yeah, at the brand new Four Seasons in November. You can check out that QR code and get $250 off and book a free call with somebody. Maybe it'd be me, who knows? And it's valid through Friday, August 15th. And the next slide, we have another one, John. Yeah, there we go. So LMN demo, if you don't know what LMN software is, it is a game changer software for your landscape business. I know it pretty well. It is awesome. I've been to a lot of their conferences, speak on behalf of their product. I don't get, listen, there's no money exchange for me promoting LMN. I just really believe in the software. I truly hardly love it. It's great. They're way ahead of the game. Compared to a lot of other groups, but Mark leads that team. They've got a great customer service, awesome products. You can schedule a free demo with an interest expert, and there's some 25% off. So go check them out too. Man, so let's open up to questions, John. I think we got some time. We got about 8 or 9 minutes for some questions. I'm sure that there's probably a handful of them out there. Let's see here.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yep, can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so we have one here. So they want to know, I know you said we have to create an enhancement calendar based off of our region, but is there a good resource to think about or what resources to offer? I could definitely use something or someone to help me ideate what kind of enhancements and upsells I can offer.
If you or anybody just email me, Mark at GoLMN, I'll shoot you a framework that I've used for years for this exact thing. So anyone here, feel free to email me, just Mark with a K at golmn.com. I'll shoot you that framework back. It's got a kind of a procedure for doing this, but happy to send that to anybody that would like it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. You just make sure you tailor it to your business. It's almost things that you already are servicing. But like, what are your clients asking for you to do? What are your competitors doing that you're not offering? That's what I meant by within your region, whether it be Dallas, Texas, or Seattle, Washington, or New York, upstate New York. It kind of varies based on your region. So what is everybody else doing? So great question. Looks like, Lauren, our good friend Lauren here, has got a question. Sales training, any advice on developing question and answer? Mark, you want to take that real quick?
Yeah, I mean, I have lots of these on YouTube if you want to check them out, but my favorite book is the Sales Bible for this. Sales Bible by Jeffrey Gitomer is an outstanding resource. He talks about 5 power questions and 5 compelling power statements in the book, but I've also done lots. If you want to just check out YouTube on the LMN channel, you should be able to find sales training that I've led specifically to these questions and answers that I keep referring to.
Good. Yeah, the book I recommend is Sales Simplified. Lauren, hopefully you might have read that. I had that author on our podcast not too long ago, and it's great. Your entire sales team can read it. You could also open it up and have a good Q&A and read it as an entire sales team. And so they make it really, really simple. So that's my advice to you. See if we have anything else, John.
Yeah, we had one question from Ellis. He wants to know, how do we figure out which clients to prioritize on those one-on-one walkthroughs? He doesn't have a big sales team, so he wants to figure out how he can really target those key clients.
Yeah.
Good one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, good one. So I'm a fan of all clients need to be walked with, right? If you're picking out your business and go, well, I don't really need to meet with them, because they don't really spend any money. Ellis, that might not be your ideal client at the end of the day, right? So I would almost go back to what Mark had mentioned is, define that ideal customer profile, ideal client, and say you've got 50 clients, 10 of them that you're just not comfortable with at all. 40 of them you might need to get rid of the 10, stick with the 40 and go meet with them one-on-one. At the end of the day, because all 40 of those clients have completely individual needs and issues or enhancements to figure out based on Mark's, analogy of the retired wealthy guy versus the two parents working versus the couple that has no kids. So you have to figure out what they are at the end of the day. And then I'm a fan of meeting them all. That's your job, is to identify what their needs are on the property. Mark, anything to add?
Yeah, I think you nailed it there. At the end of the day, in our businesses, we have to all be willing to do the hard stuff, right?
Yeah.
And going to meet with customers, that's the hard stuff. And so if we really think about it, we need to create block time in our calendars, and somebody needs to spend enough time with the customers. Maybe it's not you in your business, but somebody needs to spend enough time to actually meet with them to figure out what their needs are, and then make sure that we at least put offers in front of them to solve those needs. And so if you have 200 customers and you go out and meet with 10 customers a week, that's going to take you 20 weeks to go around for one person. 2 people, you could do it in 10 weeks. And so if you're going to come up with a quarterly plan to meet with every customer, how many can you do in a week per person? How many people are out doing it? Then put block time in the calendar to actually do that. And so maybe that means 10 hours a week is just doing one-to-one customer health check meetings. And at the end of the day, if you think about high value actions, there is probably not a higher value action. The return on that time invested in going out to meet with customers, to walk the property, changes everything. It changes your retention profile, and it changes the profitability of your core business. So it's a choice. Do you put the time into meeting with customers to get your profit from 7% to 15%? And then do you actually meet with your customers to prevent your retention from being 60% when it could be 95%. And so at the end of the day, the time spent meeting with customers saves a lot of time later finding new customers, because it's a lot easier to get more business from the people that already know, like, and trust you than it is to go find new people. So I don't think there's a higher return on time invested anywhere in your business than spending time with customers, to the point where in my business today, as a CEO of a software company, I spend 100 days in a room with my customers. And then I spend 100 days in rooms with my employees. That's how I decide to spend my time, because there's so much value in spending time with customers. But I think landscapers undervalue the amount of time that they spend with their customers, because it's the hard stuff.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, we avoid the hard stuff. Like, that is, for as long as people have existed, we take the path of least resistance.
Yep.
And that's
so
it.
True. So true. Yeah. And just Mark, I was going to say something. Mark has traveled a lot in the last couple of years, visiting and meeting with customers, small, medium, large size, you name it. And really, he's made a lot of connections throughout the last, couple of years. And to myself, I've got 50 or so clients I manage every single month. I talk to them every single month, 12 months a year, and we meet in person 4 times a year. And that's traveling all over the country. So are you doing that much for your landscape business that's all local? I would ask the question, right? But you've got to spend time with your customers. It is truly valuable. Well, that's it. Let's give it up for Mark. Good job for joining us on the webinar today. I hope you guys learned a ton of information. Thanks, John, for setting it up. Thanks, LMN, McFarland Stanford, for teaming up and getting this thing knocked out. Ace Groups is where it's at come November. And then also click on the link for LMN items there. And this is all going to be recorded. This will be all sent out through our team and staff. But hope to catch you out there in the road and keep it going. Thanks, Mark.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate the invite.
Yep.